I'd like to welcome our speaker for tonight, Sheryl Drinkwater. She is president of the Diablo Fire Safe Council, and she's a licensed architect. She's got about 25 years of project management experience in that field. She's actually done a lot of work in doing building safety evaluations for Cal OES since 2015. She's certainly been deployed on a number of very troubling fire sites, Sonoma County, Paradise, the Camp Fire, and that kind of sparked her interest in doing a deeper dive in home hardening, and she's since become a really recognized expert in that area. She's very well known in the area, and we're super thrilled that she's here tonight to talk about this topic. It's a very people are very interested in this topic. We've had a lot of questions about this topic, so I will turn it over to her so she can fill you in a little bit on non-combustible gates and fences.
Hi, everybody.
Sheryl.
Yeah, thank you, Wendy, and thank you for having me. I got my presentation start here at Oakland Fire Safe Council with Sue Piper going on 6 years ago, so kind of nice to come back and say hi to everybody. I did give this talk last November for another Fire Safe Council, so I just sort of updated and fixed a couple things. And it's not very long. I look forward to the Q&A. It is a hot topic. People are really focused on gates and fences attached to the home. So we're going to show a lot of pretty pictures after we get kind of an introduction, and then we'll do a little Q&A. And I think I have, a little extra time since Oakland didn't speak for too long.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so let's see if I can advance slides. There we go. So I'll just get us into it. Why address fences near the home? So fence studies show that wood, combustible, fencing can provide fire pathways to your building. In the 2021 Marshall Fire and the 2012 Waldo Canyon Fire, combustible fences along the wildland interface, as it was referred to, and in neighborhoods acted as a wick that enabled fire to spread to structures. So this kind of makes sense. There are these linear conduits that divide all our properties, and they're often made of wood. So there's been a lot of post-fire inspections and a lot of research being done around fences and gates near the home. So Assembly Bill 3074 that we are fairly all familiar with Zone 0, passed in 2020, became a law. This directed the Board of Forestry to develop specific guidance for this ember resistant zone, or Zone 0. We've all heard a lot about that. And it includes fences and gates in the first 5 feet of the home, attached to the home. Not parallel to the home, but perpendicular to the exterior wall. So usually these are our gates and fences that enclose our backyard. So fences made of wood can ignite and bring fire to your home. Reduce risk by keeping fences clear of debris. So this is like pine needles and leaves and all the dead matter that can blow around or that just tends to collect right at the base of our walls and base of our fences, especially on those low fence rails, which can really collect just even unmaintained vegetation. So you need to check regularly for debris and also decay if your fence is starting to decay because of maybe moisture problems or because of vegetation attached to it. So dry vegetation, as it dries out near a decaying fence, can make it even more vulnerable, and it can ignite the fence boards. We also want to avoid back-to-back fences. I don't think we see too much of that around here. We have 2 parallel fences, like one owner built a fence, another owner built a fence, and they're back-to-back. But this can trap fuels in between, and that is a big challenge for maintenance, right? So you want to coordinate with your next door neighbors to have one hardened fence to better protect both your homes. And these are just some images, not all mine, but the one in the top right is actually in the Berkeley Hills. And I really saw this. It is like a gabion fence, but it's made with mulch. It's kind of the poster child for what not to do, right? In the Berkeley Hills. So I love showing that image. And then the others are just, that I've borrowed from a lot of these researchers and education groups on just kind of what the issues are with lattice fencing and unruly vegetation. These are all creating vulnerabilities to homes and decks. So what are the best practices for gates and fences? you want to retrofit your fences or gates that are connected to the home for at least the first 5 feet from the house. Now, we're not all going to have 5-foot wide gates, so you're going to be looking at maybe some filler pieces, or maybe you don't have that much, you don't have 5 feet to the property line or to the parallel fence, but you want to at least address 5 feet, if not more, if you have it, just to create that disconnect. And you want to use a non-combustible material like metal or fiber cement, and I'm going to show lots of photos, or concrete. There's even concrete fences out there now. And if you're ready to build a new fence, you want to use a non-combustible material. This is one of those, not necessarily a capital project like replacing your roof, but if you have a lot of linear feet of fence and it's at lifespan and it's degrading, this is the time to plan to do a non-combustible fence, or if you're working with your neighbor, for example, or if you're disconnecting from the home. And then you need to regularly maintain the weeds and dead material. So that's a maintenance issue, a regular cyclical thing. And then repair. If you have anything that happens to the fence, maybe it gets damaged. You want to make sure you're taking care of it and cleaning it, and maybe even conditioning the wood. This will give you longevity, and it will be a little bit more resistant if it's not, falling apart or decaying. And I just wanted to add also that fences are not included in the California Building Code. This is seen right now as more of a defensible space rule, and it is part of Zone 0. And then these are just some images. Again, the one on the right is a very common image that you may have seen, where it shows, a non-combustible gate under an eave, and then the rest of the fence has not been replaced, right? Maybe it's not that old and it's in good shape and it just needs a little maintenance. On the left is a company that I just recently learned about through a project I'm working on for a homeowner to harden their yard. And this Artisan Panels group seem very versatile to work with residential owners. Does not require large, huge projects with a lot of material. They're really working at the residential level, and they have a lot of options, and they're very customizable. And we'll see some more images. So fence and gate design, continuing. Install the hinge if you have an existing wood gate and it's or you're about to build a gate. Install the hinge for the swing side of the gate on the opposite side of your home. So there's an image here on the top right that kind of illustrates this. Ideally, it swings in the exit direction. If you were evacuating from your yard, for example, you would want it to go in the direction of travel. And then once you leave your property safely, you will leave that gate open. It would create a disconnect, right? If you just have a wood gate and you haven't gotten to that project yet, or if you're planning for a new gate, you can still do this, right? This is creating a disconnect from your home. This also makes it safer for firefighters to enter your property. If you followed any of the webinars that came out of LA, or some of our partners at UCANR did a lot of presentations about how firefighters, when they came to those properties in LA, they have an axe and they are just disconnecting gates all over the place. And you can see evidence of that in post-fire assessments. And these are just a bunch of gate examples at the bottom of non-combustible. Some I have taken, some I haven't. These are all kind of off the shelf, create your own gate on the left, and then these kind of customized laser cut gates that are available out there. A more open design also makes it difficult for the windblown embers to accumulate at the bottom of the panels, especially if there's receptive fuels there at the bottom, like the pine needles and leaves that we mentioned, or overgrown vegetation. So a more open design, things are going to kind of blow through and not get as caught. So these are just some examples of using hog wire, using a whole metal system. This is a photo I took up in the Berkeley Hills. The kind of ember testing, research at IBHS showing how these embers just hit the side of a fence like they do at the side of our walls of our home, which is why Zone 0 is so important. And then the familiar image. So the less combustible material, the better, but you do not need to replace all elements of your fence if they are in good condition. So heavier wood elements, sometimes we refer to it as timber, and also pressure treated wood posts, but the larger, like 4x4 or even 6x6, those are going to be a lot more difficult to ignite. So if you already have those and they're in good shape as your fence posts, maybe you can do a retrofit where you just replace the panels. And you could go to a hog wire or some sort of cementitious construction, or another non-combustible material. And then a longer run of wood fence could pose less of a risk if it's periodically interrupted by either stone pillars or stucco wall, which is in the bottom right, is a photo I took in Kensington. There may be a way to do that where you're creating more disconnect, because that is what we're trying to do, is we're disconnecting fuels from one another. The fence is a long conduit, right? So if we're interrupting it with non-combustible materials, we're going to give our homes a lot better chance. Oh, I also want to say behind me right now is this image of this. This is a hardy, fiber cement hardy plank fence that's up in the Berkeley Hills that, it's aging okay. It does need to be cared for. So now I'm going to show you just a bunch of photos of things I've come across or that I've researched, and I tried to identify most of them. But this is on the left is one of those steel frame and metal, steel frame and hog wire fences that is also up in the Berkeley Hills that I took. I thought that was pretty nice. They need to do a little bit of vegetation maintenance, but this would be considered a non-combustible fence. We have a lot of companies, a lot of them from Australia are starting to see a market here and are making offerings for aluminum and steel fencing. So I have these listed. So this is giving you a lot of options and some colors. They're starting to expand their color palette for different, mostly gray right now, but they're moving more into warmer brown and warm grays. This on the top right is a fire safe Marin video. I took a still. They are doing a series of videos showing how to actually build different retrofits and mitigations. And so this is actually a fiber cement hardy panel with battens that they constructed. It's a double-sided fence. One neighbor wanted one kind of hardy product on one side, and then this owner wanted another one. And they show the whole process of it being built. And then we also have wildfire defense mesh, which is a great raw material that can be fashioned for many things on your home, lots of different types of mitigations. But you could also retrofit an existing fence with wildfire defense mesh, or you could build, a new fence. It looks like this one is using the mesh along with a metal, more open metal fence. So very versatile material. This is another hardy and steel frame fence up in the Berkeley Hills that is showing kind of the backside. So you could see there's some bigger wood members and some metal as well. And then on the right is another hog wire frame that an owner had built and she did just all these panels. I mean, it's pretty nice. It's just a very repetitive design that actually looks really great on her property. Moz Designs does a lot of laser cut perforated metals. I really like this image. I did find out that they're really more designed for larger projects, more commercial. But I think if you were just getting off the shelf, if you will, patterns and not trying to customize anything, it may be an option. But again, I just learned about Artisan Panel, which is a lot more user-friendly for residents, and their website has a ton of information on it and images. So this is taken from there, the bottom left, another laser cut metal fence next to a small concrete wall that looks like it's been plastered. Then there's this pattern form concrete. This was taken in Marin at the Ember Stomp last year. And these are actually, they have patterns and they just form the fence against a pattern, so it can look like lots of things. This one looks like wood on the left, and the other one looks like stone, but these are just made of concrete, and they come in sections, probably a little on the higher cost side. And then here are a couple examples from Color Bond of the steel privacy fencing that I mentioned before. They have really open designs, they have really solid designs. And they can also act like a radiant shield. Like this might be a good option to have a more solid steel fence in between neighbors that are kind of close together to address, that singular exposure. More sleek fence is another manufacturer on the bottom right. On the left is another kind of system that is metal, kind of like a kit of parts. Breeze block. This is something we saw a lot of in the past and in modern homes and also in LA. See a lot of them in LA. I was just down there and was kind of reminded, yeah, a lot of breeze block. But this is a nice kind of another kit, right? That you can have lots of versatility for high and low fences.
That's just a stack of
Whoa, whoa.
blocks.
What was that? I don't know what that was, but anyway, so to sell is one company that makes the breeze block, so lots of different options there, and with metal gate, so lots of creative potential if that's the kind of aesthetic of your home. On the top left is another local contractor who many of you have probably heard of, and she just built this fence using hog wire and steel posts for a homeowner who is up in the fire zone. There's also engineered woods, products that look like wood. This is aluminum up in the top right. Not Wood is the company name. Oops, I lost my advancement. Okay, let me make sure I didn't miss anything. And then I have this sheet here, and I can give the slides out so that these can be shared. I also have a fence resource sheet with some more images, some you've seen. But, the cost is going to definitely depend on, of course, how many linear feet that you're replacing and what the pattern is, what the material is, and how laborious, right, the labor cost. So these are all considerations for homeowners to think about. And, there's also off-the-shelf metal fence panels at Home Depot, which would be pretty inexpensive. Also, depending on your slope or the design, you may need a permit. There's chain link fencing. Nobody really loves it, but if you're really on a budget, that is a low cost product. Using timber, wood frame panels with the panels that I mentioned before. If you're retrofitting or new, you could use the woven wire mesh and really get customize it. And then we have a lot of local just wire mesh companies. McNichols is one of them. They have a wide array of different wire mesh and different patterns. Then we mentioned bushfire or wildfire defense mesh is another one. That's kind of the old term. I guess I carry that over from something else. That's his Australian company, but that raw material, you could buy it and really fashion some frames. Very versatile material for many different mitigation projects. You can also hire, work with a metal worker or an iron fabrication. We did this in the past on projects before I got into wildfire. It was often cheaper to do things like handrails and gates and guardrails out of metal over wood. It was really cost effective. There are these aluminum systems that I've mentioned. They do get probably a little bit more expensive, but I have not priced any yet. And then we have these other materials, proprietary materials like Moso bamboo, which is a bamboo composite. I talked about hardy plank. There's lots of different ways to do that. And then there's also something similar to that, which is boral. It's a different kind of material, but it's another composite panel. And I have just learned of another fiber cement company too, but I don't have it in here yet. They're a Japanese company and they're very comparable to Hardy. Let's see. And then I just listed some of those companies. There are more out there. And, again, this also depends on your specific design. And of course, work together with your neighbors, especially those neighbors that are right next to you. And I happen to have this photo in this talk, and of course it's very appropriate for tonight. This is right here from Oakland. So, grouping projects, even if it's, another project, not necessarily gates and fences, grouping projects together and talking to a contractor, this can be a real, really get a good cost if you're doing something repetitive or similar, right? So working with your neighbors is very important, as you know. So protecting your property involves making decisions to regularly and cyclically maintain your property, right? So even without wildfire, we have projects to do on our properties, whether they're capital projects like windows and roof, or if they're just maintaining your landscape. So this is both applicable, right? We're not just doing one thing. We're doing lots of things to make our homes safer and reduce risk. But I would truly believe this is a creative opportunity, and I think a lot of people will start to really enjoy this, especially as they see more and more homes mitigate. So that is what I have.
Great. Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Uh-huh.
That was great. Great presentation. Anybody have questions for Cheryl? I'm sure you do. Not seeing anybody raising their hand. I have a question, actually. I'll go jump in there first. Are any of these companies, do you know of, making, so for metal products or metal fences, do they use recycled metals or is there,
Great question.
any
No, I
yeah,
don't know. I don't know if they are. They're,
repurposed materials, to make fences this way, non-combustible?
yeah, I don't know about the recycled. What was the second one?
Just repurposing materials, some kind of, more sustainable focused
Yeah, no,
green
that's a really good
materials
point.
to make fences out of.
Hmm. I think for folks who already sort of think that way, and about especially repurposing, and there's a lot of wood repurposed already. There's a market for that. And if you have big enough members, and you're not talking about things like lattice, again,
Right.
if for those who have been to my 5 Easy Actions, I kind of simulate a little campfire. If you think about all the kindling that is you would build a fire around, right? The little fuels, the small fuels.
Yeah,
As
the
long as you're
small wood.
staying away from any kind of wood that is like that, and you're talking about more like timbers, 6 by 6,
Mhm.
or bigger beams, or different things like that. That is a way to repurpose some woods and other products too. I mean, we could really get creative. You could use an old mattress wiring,
Hmm.
to really repurpose. That's a non-combustible material, right? Is all the wire
Just
from
don't
an
fill
old
it,
mattress.
don't fill it with mulch.
Yeah, well, yeah, fill it with
Yeah.
mulch, exactly. But you could do, you
Yeah.
could get pretty creative with it if that's, your inclination already. Now, I think
Mhm.
probably over 50% of the folks here just want to get the job done, right? And you want to
Mhm.
not spend too much money. So that's why I try to show an array of options. And, there are certain projects that are going to be more higher priority than others, right? Getting that wood gate that maybe is 20 years old away from your house is going to be a high priority, right? Dealing with the parallel fence is going to come a little later, right? So you want to
Mhm.
really start making a list of the highest priority projects. And again, we have the World Wide Web too for these
Yes.
repurposing and finding resources. My client found the Artisan Panel Company
Mhm.
after approaching Moz Design. I just really thought it was a great website, but I hadn't had the need to go talk to those folks yet. So now we know.
Right.
So we're
That's
all
great.
we're all learning, right, as we go. We're all learning how to solve the issues. And but
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of potential, right? We have lots of cool things that we can do with it. That's why I like that last image, just showing the gabion wall and even shade structures.
Yeah.
Structures could be non-combustible with a laser cut pattern as well.
Nice. Anybody else have any questions or
Several
thoughts?
hands up.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead, Frank.
I was curious what the studies show in regards. You said it's always better to have more than 5 feet. What do the studies show in terms of where do you stop, basically getting benefit in terms of how much beyond 5 feet that you go with non-combustible fences and gates?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, the study is really about other combustible materials nearby, and where you start to really see, like, for example, with all our houses so close together, is 30 feet. So a lot of folks don't have 30 feet around here. But the 5 foot was really came out of IBHS. There's a whole video on it and showing, the difference between a hardened home and a non-hardened home, and how important that first 5 feet is really well documented. Now, Jack Cohen, who was a forester, retired forester now from the from the U.S. Forestry Service, he sort of started to recognize that it was the near home combustibles that really affected these homes and ignited homes, and it was because of the embers, right? So we know that story. Most of us know that story now, and so 5 feet is not a magic number that fire knows, right? So 5 feet is really the working number that we can ask of folks and that we know will give benefit. And so if you can do more, then yes, the more the better. But we know that 5 feet will reduce risk. And so that is what we're doing. We're not making fireproof homes. We're not reducing all risk. This is reducing risk. Everything we do is reducing risk. This can apply to everything, right, in our lives. We're human.
We got lots of questions here actually suddenly popping
Okay.
up. So
Let's move
get
on to the
them.
next one.
I'm not sure who was first, but I see Louise, you have your hand up there.
Well, mine is a curiosity question, Cheryl. On your last slide, you showed a house and and I couldn't figure out, was it art or was it some kind of protective device for the home?
This slide?
No, it was the very last slide that you showed. No? Maybe all the
Okay, I
way.
don't know. But anyway, hopefully it was something that was a good idea. I mean, if you go back to this house.
This house.
On the
Yes.
left?
It's on my right, your left.
Okay, so the wood trellis.
The wood trellis, yes.
Yeah, so I thought you might be talking about the wood trellis. So, this is made of wood. Those beams are fairly large. And, this photo does not come from any kind of home hardening resource list. This is me showing that these laser cut metal panels could be used in constructing fences, gates, shade structures, trellises. We have to think about a lot of different wood members or wood constructions, right, on our property. And so I was just really trying to show the creativity. I mean, if you built this with metal framing, for example, or large timbers, the beams are pretty big. It's those other looks like 2x4s or thinner that would be more vulnerable. So if you beef that up with bigger members of wood or used metal for those purlins, then you're going to make it's going to be more robust. So that's all.
Well, but what is it that was the decoration? Was that decoration or was that something?
That was a laser cut metal panel used as a horizontal surface for a trellis. So laser cut meaning it has a pattern, and it does look pretty amazing when it starts showing all the shadows coming through. So
it was shadows.
Yeah.
Shadows.
So anyway, all right. So we got
All
that.
right, so we got another one here. Marilee, I think you're up next.
Thank you. This is a nit, but I have a hog wire fence on one side of my house, but its frame is made out of wood. And I recently put a strip about 12 or 14 inches wide to the top of the fence on the metal sheeting on the house so that the wood wouldn't hit the house. So is that adequate or is that just a temporary?
Well, it's hard to know. You can email me and I would be happy to comment on it if you could take a picture of it so I can really know what you're talking about.
Okay, what's your email address?
I'm with Diablo Fire Safe Council. So if you just go to diablofiresafe.org, you can find my email there, and I'm happy to talk to you about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Jen, you have a question.
A couple things. First question was interesting to see that bamboo popped up as a material that can be used.
It is not just bamboo. It is a composite material that's quite dense and heavy, and it has a Class A fire rating. It's called MOSO, M-O-S-O, MOSO bamboo. So it will not be what you're visualizing as bamboo. It's like lumber. It's kind of more like ipe wood.
Yeah.
It's very dense.
Okay. But it's nice because it is a natural material that has been.
But look at the whole
composite.
Do your research because it's a composite material, kind of like Trex or fiber cement. It's not made up of one thing. So
got it. Okay. And then the second thing I wanted to just point out is that Wendy, going back to your question about like more maybe sustainable or eco-friendly options. Right. Chris Cullender had shared a document a while back, and I was remiss in getting it out to everyone. But the first part of it I put in the chat, just kind of like local resources to kind of salvagey places you can look. But he has a whole host of other suggestions and ideas in the document that I could share in our next newsletter when we're doing a feature on the fences and gates, following up to
Perfect.
what Cheryl's
All
presenting.
right. I see Chris is on tonight too. So
Yeah. So Chris, I'm assuming that's okay to share?
Full disclosure, Chris saw this already.
Okay.
Yeah.
And this is my correct email. I just put my correct email in there. That was the wrong one that got posted.
All right, gang. Let's take another question here. Are we ready to move on?
I think we got them all right. Oh no, Tom and Edward.
Tom and Edward. I think Edward, you may have been next. Let's let Edward go.
Hi, thank you. Just a couple questions on materials. So basically, would any WUI compliant material be considered a non-combustible material for this?
What was the material?
Like anything which is like on the state fire marshal WUI compliant list, would that meet the non-combustible, or is that a completely separate?
Well, not all materials on there are non-combustible.
Okay.
There's a variety of components as well, including windows, right? So
Okay,
you're not going to be making fences and gates out of windows. So it would depend, but it's not a bad idea if you have an idea like to use Moso bamboo. I believe they are on that list, and being on that list does not mean it's the only thing you can use. Many other products that are not on that list will meet non-combustibility, or and like I said, right now if you're looking at things like code, the only code requirement will be to have non-combustible for the first 5 feet attached to your house. So a lot of variety in how to interpret this replacement, right, of your gates and fences on your property. So, it's always best to first make sure, do I need a permit? If you're doing something, especially if it's over 6 feet, it may likely require a permit. Or if you're doing any kind of retaining of earth, you have a maximum height you can go without a permit. And every jurisdiction, they're mostly the same, but sometimes they have specifics, like Contra Costa County is much more restrictive, for example.
And then for like posts, so you're mentioning for like retrofits, you can keep your old wood posts and then do the materials on the side. If you're doing a new fence, can you use like the 4x4 or 6x6 posts?
Yeah, I think those are harder. Yeah, they're harder to ignite. Ideally, if you could do non-combustible like a steel post, but I think all of us, including CAL FIRE, the state, everybody, we understand that this costs money and that it's a lot, right, to ask. So we want to try to get creative. We want to be, we want to soften the blow, if you will. So if you have posts that are 4x4 or thicker, bigger, those are tough to ignite unless you give them the perfect scenario. And what that perfect scenario would be is a bunch of dead fuels around the fence posts, right? So if you're maintaining the fence and you have good, your fence posts are in good condition, and if they're pressure treated, even not that makes it fireproof, but they have a little bit more robustness. Then replace the panels and get some of that work done, right? To reduce risk.
For a brand new fence, would you go with, what would you use on the?
I think going with a 4x4 or 6x6 or steel post are all good options, but again, it's maintenance. Very important that you don't ignore the vegetation growing on our properties. We have fairly small properties, most of us, and we have to maintain. We can't just let everything grow willy-nilly. All right, I think we have Tom.
One more from Tom, yeah.
Yeah, so just a sort of related question. So I get that if you're away from the house, 4x4 or 6x6 wood posts are probably fine because you're trying to reduce fuel load. What about right next to the house? You've got a legacy 4x4 post. Is that going to count as, that doesn't seem non-combustible to me.
Yeah, no, this came up recently on a property, and I think it's going to depend on the inspectors. They're all also human, and they're going to be coming at this learning curve as well. And if you can remove any combustible posts in that first 5 feet, that would be a better choice if you have that capability of doing that. You just want to get the combustibles away. If you have a non-combustible zone and it's all gravel and there's no vegetation, they may be like, okay, that's okay because it's 4x4 and it's pressure treated or something. But yeah, you want to move in the direction of non-combustible as much as possible. If you have an old gate and it's time, I would get a steel post there. That's just right at the house. So that you want to start with a good chance, right, at reducing risk.
Right. Any other questions? Marilee, I see you have your hand up again. Do you have a new question?
Yeah, when are these requirements going to be required?
Yeah, great. That's a great
Good
question.
question.
So this month, the Board of Forestry are meeting, and they will have a public meeting in April on, I think it's the 23rd, and this is all public on the web. You know, you can go to the CAL FIRE website and find all this, and you can sit in on the public meeting. So what I have heard is that they are now going to finalize the guidance. It's going to get issued. And for new construction, that would mean that it would go into effect right away. So if you're doing a new project, like a new house, and you're following the WUI building code and defensible space laws, then it will go into effect right away. For existing homes, of which that's what we mostly have, in the state, is existing homes, millions of them, you'll have a 3-year grace period. So that's kind of what the law says. But we have all these different fire agencies, right? I mean, most of you may be in Oakland, but not everybody. Oakland's going to go with the state. They're going to follow the state. But it's going to take a while for them to get up to speed, right? They got to train everybody, all the inspectors. They have to come up with a system of how they're going to inspect. And you've probably heard this before. Most fire agencies are pretty nice people. They don't want to penalize you. They don't want to charge you. So that it's probably going to start out more educational, and they may identify a violation, but they're going to work with you to get there. So I would look at it that way, that you're working together and you're trying to reduce risk, right? This is all about us reducing risk and not being displaced in a catastrophe. So we are all working together. So you have time, but it's a good thing to start planning for.
Great, thank you. Marianne.
Hi, I just want to add, because this just came in for the FAIR plan. With it, there is now a discount for non-combustible fencing. So when we see these discounts coming up, it is Zone 0 is a process, but we could see things a little bit quicker. So I just want to make sure that if you are on the FAIR plan, please keep a look. There are new discounts for home hardening, and combustible fencing removal is one of the new added ones that
is wonderful.
Yeah.
That's great.
Marianne.
I was just going to add to that, for real estate agents too, there's all the disclosures. And so there's been a lot of recent changes with that as well. And it does now, and insurance companies too. I actually received one, and I'm not even in a fire area, where I have a fire risk score, and I have all these things it's asking me to check off if I've done, like, vents, mitigation, and fences and gates and all of these things. So it is getting folded in. And that is where most of the enforcement will probably start from, is from the insurance side. They're going to have the power.
Yeah.
Right. Marianne, just a question on that, and Sheryl also, because they were granting discounts if you do all of the things that they are asking you to do, not just one or two of the things, right? So I don't know if they've changed that, and now it looked like they were changing and willing to offer discounts for each individual item that you do. Maybe I read that wrong.
That's how I read it as well.
Yeah, that's how I was reading it.
So you can get like a check mark for doing certain things, at least from how it reads to me. But all of this is adapting. But as Sheryl brought up, we will see most of these changes required by the insurance companies firsthand, probably more than we get them through our municipalities at this rate. But I just redid my fence with 5 feet after seeing all the videos, including following the fires in SoCal and seeing, the matchsticks on the side. I was concerned that it would look funny, but honestly, that 5 feet and with a wooden one, a little distance, I still get some privacy. I found a solution to lock it, and I do not regret making the change.
Great. We have time for one more question.
I was just going to say real quick, Marianne, you should put it in the newsletter.
Yeah, put it in the newsletter. Yeah.
We're working on that, Jen and
Okay, good. Elizabeth.
So I just wanted to say real quickly, Marianne, you went from talking about the FAIR plan to talking about insurers, plural. I think at the present time, all insurance companies are required to recognize some of the mitigations that we've been discussing. Some have taken a menu approach. Others are taking an all or nothing approach.
That's true.
My insurance company, CSAA, is taking a menu approach, but the total discount on that menu is capped. So even though I've done all the things, I don't get the sum total of all the things. I'm only eligible for the max. And bless their hearts, I'm not eligible to get that discount until the time of my renewal. And my renewal doesn't come up before I have to renew my IBHS
Wildfire prepared home.
Right.
certification. So I was texting with them and basically saying, are you amazingly kidding me? I am astonished at what you are telling me. May I speak to your supervisor, please? And I got dropped from the chat. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah.
So I would say that the best reason to do any and all of the things that we're talking about right now is because it's the right thing to do for you, your home, your family, and potentially your neighbors. And to Marilee's question about when this is going to happen, I agree 100% with what Sheryl just said about the fire agencies. They cannot change the rules immediately for those of us with existing homes. And because of the timing of CAL FIRE, suspicious as it is, they can't start that clock ticking until the beginning of 2027. And it's 3 years before the local jurisdictions can use the state regulations.
Right, for existing homes.
However, Berkeley, to take a specific example, and I've been hearing some hopes in Oakland, but no predictions yet. You can always have as a local jurisdiction something that's stricter than the state. You just can't have something that's weaker.
That's right. That's right.
So
that's really interesting to hear about your insurance agency. I was going to say, work with your insurance companies as much as you can anyway. I know it's not always
some of them, I'm sure, are lovely people.
It's so important, to talk to them and tell them what you're doing, because they don't get it right every time.
That's correct.
So
Thank you, Elizabeth. That was very, very good advice. Thank you so much. Thank you, Sheryl. I think that's all the time we have for this. Now we got to move on.